Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the LCS for Spring Split 2024. It's time for game number 3 of the day. I got Team Liquid going up against FlyQuest, and I got Emily Rand joining Azael and myself for the TriCast here today. If we got any randoms in chat, let us know. Emily, how are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You know,
you're welcome. It was our decision as we make the caster assignments.
Oh, God.
You're going to kill it. You always do. It should be a fun game here. We have TL, we have Fly. 2 of, I would say, the 4 top projected teams in the league, you know, generally speaking, based on the power rankings. So 2 teams, you know, looking to have a strong start here. Liquid obviously 1-1 last week. FlyQuest did go 2-0, but had a much easier strength of schedule. This week, FlyQuest plays TL and Energy. So I think we're going to get a really good kind of reading on how strong this team really is. We know they're better than some of the teams towards the bottom. How good are they amongst the pack at the top?
Yeah, you've got the Cloud9 level where everybody's expecting them to be #1, but that melee that you're talking about for those top 4 spots with Energy, with TL, with FlyQuest, that's where things are getting interesting, and I think that's where they're going to get bloody.
Yeah, and obviously TL dropped a game. Fly, I think they've actually had some shaky moments in some of their games, and similarly, NRG, who's kind of the other team that we're looking at, just won their match, but they've had some shaky moments. So this is also a chance for Fly to just pull into a 3-0 position. Going into tomorrow when I believe they face off against NRG.
So let's see what the draft phase is going to look like here. FlyQuest banning out the Nico, banning out the Nautilus. That Nico, one of the picks that APA has wreaked some havoc with. It's not as iconic as his Ziggs, but it is one that we've seen him have a lot of miraculous moments, huge flanks with in the past. So I can understand FlyQuest wanting to take that off the table. Varus removed here by TL. One of those strong lethality type of AD carries. Lethality's been so popular with the power of Serrated Dirk early and just AD carries in general, feeling like if you can build lethality, you're in a better spot right now. Vi, taking off the table here next.
Didn't call it a work to be here because we're back on the weekends.
Let's go! That's the way it should be, damn it!
Yeah, and we are on 14.2. If you haven't been paying attention, LCS is on the live patch, only league in the world doing it right now. Karma really strong in this patch, so definitely expecting it as a red side final ban here from TL, but is potential for it to be left up.
Yeah, I'm super curious if it does make it through this ban phase, because as we saw from C9, they actually banned it on blue side, meaning that they didn't want to first pick lock it in, but it looks like Fly, if she is that strong, would be able to would be willing to lock it in as first pick if it doesn't get banned by TL here.
All right, the Nocturne is banned out, and there goes the Ash. So Team Liquid is saying, all right, if you want Karma, let's see Jensen or Bwipo play it.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. You can also just play it in the bot lane, absolutely. I do think Karma Ezreal both got buffed on this patch. It's one of those lanes that I think is going to be coming back to prominence when it is up and available. So Karma to me is actually a 3-way flex. As long as your players are comfortable playing it, I think first picking it makes a lot of sense.
I agree, and especially going up against, there we go, locked in, our first Karma. Woo! It's kind of hilarious that of all champions, we're partying about Karma, who like as soon as people see like 2 Karma games, they're gonna be like, we're done. We're done.
It's like when Udyr first got popular.
That was crazy.
It was insane.
It's like when Udyr got popular back before his rework, and everybody had a great time with run, stun, job done for about 1 week.
Yeah. It's really interesting, though, because the thing I did want to talk about is picking this Karma into TL specifically. I think TL, when we look at when this team has performed super well, it has been around pushing bot lanes and really taking control of the bot lane, despite the fact that they've had lesser of a bot lane focus. We are still, I believe, looking for our first Lucian win in the LCS, and we have the Lucian Nami coming out from TL. I'm not sure if that's in anticipation. Again, this Karma can go multiple different lanes. However, Karma Ezreal is a very common response to take control over that pushing lane in bot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You know, Lucian has just done horribly, not just in the LCS, in the LEC as well. It's 1-7. It did finally get its first win in the LEC. Kick was able to pick up a win. But this has just been stacking L's in the West, so we'll see if they're going to be able to perform here. Yeon and CoreJJ, the only bot lane duo to stay together from last year in the LCS. It is going to be very likely Karma Ezreal in that bot lane. Of course, you could flex the Karma around still, but I am expecting it to be that for Massu and Busio here. Is a powerful lane. It's so skill shot dependent, but Karma can really help you on the push. And if you can get the push, it becomes very difficult because you're kind of stuck in that shooting gallery, you know, dodging into your turret, still trying to farm.
And Jensen Orianna was our free pick in that bingo card that we did before looking at 14-2. Orianna is a very strong mid laner. Jensen is currently 60-17 on this champion in the LCS.
That's not bad.
That's a greater than 75% win rate. Remember that if you have greater than a 75% win rate in solo queue, people think you're probably getting boosted.
True.
Like, this is a boost accusation worthy.
He's the booster.
Yeah, he's the booster of his own account in the LCS. And Jensen is going to be piloting that one here once again. Team Liquid going to take the opportunity, lock in Cassante before we get to the second half of the bans. Likely to be Impact piloting that one. As you can see, the Olaf banned away. They don't want to deal with that particular matchup.
And one thing that's fallen through is the Udyr, which is obviously Bwipo is an Udyr enjoyer, as
Bless
is
up.
Impact.
No
so,
Udyr.
yeah.
Man.
Well, it could still get picked. That's the thing. It hasn't been banned out yet.
That's true, unfortunately.
And they did preemptively ban the Olaf.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Bwipo likes that champ as well.
Yeah, Olaf obviously can be a pretty good answer into some of those top lane matchups. We have been seeing it come out a little bit. Maokai going to get banned out. Still very, very strong on this patch. ADTF hasn't popped up just yet. It will be interesting to see if anyone actually plays it. If they do play it, I think it'll be played mid. But, you know, talking about this with a lot of people, there had been a lot of conversation about it because you do a lot of damage. You can crush through towers, but it seems hard to function in the 5v5 because you're not playing with Zonias. You can't actually look for those deep ults for initiations on these different pick champs. Oh, thank you very much. A sign of a rose. Okay.
Did this guy know? Did we announce that we were doing this TriCast?
I didn't say any. Oh, I did say something on Kelsey's stream, I think.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
That's a true fandom, a true fandom right there. Hell yeah. All right. So let's see. Poppy banned out here as well. So another one of those potential frontliners, the target here for Team Liquid's second half of the bans. FlyQuest have one more ban to go. The Xinjiao kept away from UmTi.
Yeah, and so now I'm really curious as to see what we're going to save. If it's going to be for APA
I feel like he
mid
might just
lane
go
or
Ziggs,
Impact.
to be honest. I mean, he could just go Absolute Comfort. That's something that had been getting banned out against him a lot. I do think Ziggs can work pretty well if you want to play that poke style. They are really light on hard engage, so I do think they need something from the jungle, but you know, we've seen a lot of these kind of hard engaged champions in the jungle are already banned out. Rell is going to be the answer. Something to start off the fights is critical when you're playing this sort of style. When you're playing with those enchanter supports, Cassante's more, you know, I think a lot stronger as a follow-up than it is as that primary engage, so they definitely were needing it.
And I don't mind them leaving that last pick for APA either. I mean, if we remember back to Team Liquid's first game last week, they got the Ziggs. That was the thing. Everybody was like, no, you can't let them have it. But then their opponents just drafting a Vi and a Yone together. You have the torpedo that can just dive him and blow them up every time. Mordekaiser locked in here as the answer in top lane. Bwipo cooking up a response to this Cassante.
This was something that I've actually was talking about on the dive. I think is a really good response into a lot of the meta top laners right now when people are playing Cassante and also Udyr. It's a really strong matchup. And also when you're playing a composition with not a lot of threats, sometimes the Mordekaiser can just walk in and just like ult someone like the Lucian, and all of a sudden the rest of the comp doesn't really function without it. You can kind of just lock him in that 1v1. So it's going to be really interesting to see what this final pick here is going to be. Trundle jungle for Inspired. Great to be shredding both the Cassante and the Rell and making himself a lot stronger. It might just be an Azir angle from APA. It's not the most exciting, but I feel like they're really lacking DPS.
I mean, if you're talking about being able to take a comp apart, if Mordekaiser ults one frontliner, Trundle ults the other one, all of a sudden there's just no frontline anywhere. You just run the rest of them over. Tristana, final pick here. So that one should be the answer for APA in the mid lane going up against Jensen's massive win rate Orianna.
Yeah, and one interesting thing, obviously, we already did point out what you need to do with a Lucian Nami lane. If TL are going to stand up to this Ez Karma push to all of the things that FlyQuest can do with their composition against TL, I feel like UmTi is going to have to go towards bot side. He's actually been significantly more top side focused, which is really interesting. He has the most forward percentage out of any jungler in the LCS at 32.9 from some of his invades. But then he's also been top the most of any jungler, whereas Inspired has been bought the most of any jungler thus far in LCS based on proximity stats. So I'm curious to see where these two junglers go, especially since in our first two games, from both River and XU, we've seen them go Raptors into an invade.
So just from the compositions alone, Which do you prefer? Who do you think won out in draft here?
I like FlyQuest team.
Yeah, FlyQuest.
Okay, so it's 2 edges there for FlyQuest versus Team Liquid having to try to find the way to properly navigate this. They do have the double marksman, again, very strong. Trundle usually a drain tank, Mordekaiser more of a bruiser, so it's not like they have any traditional huge meatball on the front line if those marksmen get rolling.
Yeah, and I will say for FlyQuest, if you fall behind, they don't have any hard engage really, so it becomes very difficult, I think, to come back. But I do think their lanes are pretty strong, and I also think playing around objectives, they're going to be really powerful. They have great poke. They have the ability to actually secure the objectives with the Mordekaiser ult, take out one of those 2 threats very easily by just throwing the ult down on the Lucian or that Tristana. And the rest of your team, I think, functions a lot better in that 4v4.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like on the other side of the coin of FlyQuest falling behind, they don't really have a hard engage mechanism. If they're ahead, you have 2 walk-at-you champs plus Karma. That is a nightmare. They just immediately walk up, take control over the area. If you can't answer their stat check, what are you going to do?
Exactly, and I think that, if they're playing from that point of power, as you're kind of expecting them to with this comp, they're going to be first at every objective. They're going to be the ones setting up there. You're going to have to be walking in against Karma poke, against this poke from the Ezreal as well. Orianna ball, the Trundle pillar, all these different things that are going to make it really, really difficult. So it's going to be an interesting game here. A lot of pressure, I think, on TL to have a strong early game. You can notice UmTi is actually playing phase rush on the Rell. This is a nod over towards that Trundle, because the Trundle slows, the Trundle pillar is really going to be devastating for you.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where if you would take something like Aftershock traditionally, remember back to the days of Trundles versus Sejuani's specifically would take anything else, even if it's just like fleet footwork, just so Trundle doesn't get to subjugate the extra armor in MR.
Also worth noting, APA and Jensen have been performing quite well for their teams so far this season. APA is actually top of the table as far as DPM in the entire league. Jensen over on the other side is actually in 3rd place. So both of these guys have really been putting out a tremendous amount of damage and have been key for their teams in doing that. So it's going to be fun to actually see how they perform in the 5v5s, how they perform overall throughout this game, and if they're going to be able to keep up those kind of stats.
All right, let's take a look at where everybody's going to start here. Looks like Inspired aiming for that top side as Impact will just drop the ward. Keep an eye on the blue buff. Make sure that they can have as much jungle tracking as possible. UmTi going to be starting up on his own blue, so opposite side starts as K'Sante will be first to the wave up there in top lane. Core and Yeon will be stepping forward. I really am interested in how this bot lane goes too, because remember, Yeon was the one who won the Rookie Award last year. He's going up against Busio and Massu, who both have so many expectations of them as young players. Massu, one of the big names in that competition for winning Rookie later on this year after we see how the whole thing pans out across spring and summer. So I think comparing the dude who just did it to the dude who everybody's expecting to do it now is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and it is going to be interesting again because this Lucian Nami bot lane does want to get pushed, and Ezreal Karma is such a good answer to that. When you're comparing these 2 AD carries, Yeon was the much more lane-focused AD carry, whereas Massu, everyone was pointing out his phenomenal teamfight targeting and his teamfighting overall. And now we see Inspired again. As he's going down on this path, I am curious to see if he's just going to end up trying to wrap around now that they've gained this push in bot.
We'll have to see. He is warded out by TL. They have that ward over by the Raptors, but so much of this bot lane for TL is going to be about avoiding the poke from the Ezreal, from the Karma, sustaining through it with the Nami, and thus far they've done a pretty good job of it. The first Mantra Q did miss. A lot of these mystic shots have been getting dashed away from by Yeon, and look at Busio taking a pretty big chunk there. Yes, he does land a Q onto CoreJJ for it, but you've got to be constantly landing that damage. Otherwise, the Nami's just going to sustain through it, and things could get a little bit rough for this FlyQuest bot lane.
Especially with both sides having an Ignite available to use, the kill pressure is significantly higher than it might otherwise be without the presence of that summoner spell. You can see neither of our junglers getting involved in anything super early just yet.
As well.
Just the full clears, The state of the push. Inspired's going to come down here, make sure that they do not end up getting crushed by any sort of move from UmTi or anyone else. Also just waiting for the Scuttle Crab to spawn. We know that UmTi's on the other side of the map since we have perfect vision, but Bwipo went ahead, took a recall after crashing the wave.
Yeah, and I think FlyQuest bot lane is getting a little bit nervous in this 2v2 because of the sustain situation. There's 3 potions in inventory for Yeon and CoreJJ. They have the additional sustain from this Nami, though Nami is starting to get a little bit low on mana. So, Inspired wants to be playing in this area, making sure that they can cover, and it's going to help them to get this reset, come in, clear the ward from Try, and make sure that Yeon and CoreJJ can't just hold this wave. It is going to get pushed in enough. Even if those 3 minions don't die off, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, A little bit of a mystic shot there. CoreJJ and Yeon did not want to allow them to get the recall that they were hoping for, so Massu's still in lane, but without a whole lot of mana to work with. Ezreal's a much less threatening opponent without the ability to spam out those spells. Jensen versus APA. APA's taking a chance to try to get the full-on explosive shot there. Guarantee a nice trade against Jensen, but the farm between the two is still very, very close.
And again, look at the potion situation. Jensen just now using his first potion there. He has 2 biscuits. He has a lot of sustain, but you have to find those opportunities to go aggressive on the Tristana in these kind of matchups. Otherwise, that happens too. You're just going to get chunked out slowly but surely. You will get whittled down. You need to take these big trades. So if the Orianna ever misses one of those command attacks, you've got to find the opportunities to jump in, get that good trade, try to chunk them out. Otherwise, things just get tough. You can't really sustain through the damage, and you will get outranged.
Bwipo trying to move forward, play aggro versus Impact up here now. Impact has been controlling the tempo of the top lane up until this point. You could see at one moment he had about, what, 10 to 15 CS lead just because there were so many minions built up for Bwipo to farm. Bwipo has equalized a good amount of that, but the Grubs have made their way onto the Rift, and as soon as they arrive, Inspired is ready to beat him over the head with that stick. First Grub is already going to fall, and it looks like nobody from Team Liquid's camp is around the area just yet. APA now making the rotation over. Inspired's just going to take the first one and leave. Remember, as long as you get one from each set, your opponents will not be able to spawn the little grublings, which is probably the biggest thing you want to prevent.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting call from Inspired, especially given how quickly, like, Rell is one of the best champs for taking those grubs, and UmTi has actually been super grub focused, right? So it's not just that he's been going topside a lot, but it's also that before games were played today, TL was actually tied with C9 for the most grubs taken of any team in LCS. So they've really been focusing that a little bit more than other LCS teams. It's a really thoughtful and good response from Inspired, not taking all of them, but making sure to deny the full clear.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're playing something like Trundle, when you don't have AoE damage, it's very difficult to actually take the full 3, right? Unless you have full prio in mid, in top, and at that point, he didn't. APA was having the push, APA was going to have that first move, so he just takes what he can get, and then he gets out of there.
Ooh, APA with a flash. Wanted to go all in on Jensen. Not quite enough damage to finish the job, but Inspired's going after the Drake. UmTi wanted to come in and stop him. Cannot do so. And since you're Rell, your DPS is pretty much rounding down to 0. So Inspired's just going to walk that one off with CoreJJ and Yeon being unable to rotate over to guarantee they could get some sort of a punish. Still very, very even game state overall, with the objectives being the thing that tilted in FlyQuest's favor.
Yeah, and I mean, that was another smart call from FlyQuest, right? Because again, they did the grub denial, and then they were like, okay, we can rotate down. We can get first Drake off of this pushing out the bot wave, and that is where bot control like usually showcases itself, is in early, being able to stack Drake early. And it's just interesting comparing these two teams and how this is reflecting what we've seen of them in terms of Drake and grub priority.
Well, still no kills on the board to speak of, as our solo laners are now level 6. You can see Impact already ticking level 7. Inspired having the ulti available on his own. Trundle, very, very powerful duelist, especially once that activates. UmTi will have to be very respectful of running into him in any sort of neutral territory, but UmTi does go ahead and secure that Scuttle Crab up in the topside river. Inspired can drop down the pillar, force the crash down from UmTi to escape there. And now, once again, it's FlyQuest controlling the river here in the top side. APA versus Jensen back in mid. Remember that APA did use the Buster Shot for that trade where he went for the attempt all the way on Jensen. The bottom lane, it's the True Shot Barrage over the top, hitting Yeon, chunking him down to about half HP. Going to force out the heal from the Nami as Busio and Massu force back underneath their own turret. Yeon wanted to make it happen, but Massu saying no. First blood back over to FlyQuest, and CoreJJ now stands alone. Massu continuing pushing forward, but probably doesn't have enough to close the gap, take him out. Nicely done from FlyQuest, outplaying and punishing Yeon.
Yeah, the curse of Lucian continues as APA's jumping forward.
Jensen now gonna get jumped. The engage with the flash from UmTi's Rell, trying to set APA up for the damage, but they don't have the burst. Now UmTi is low, and Inspired's coming in. APA gets the ulti back in time to try to knock him out, but Inspired's ready to beat him down. Another kill back over to FlyQuest as Team Liquid again overestimate their own strength and fail to die.
And lest you forget, Inspired actually went up and got those other 2 grubs as well, right? So they won in bot, they won in mid, and they are continuing to win across the board in objectives taken.
Yeah, really nicely done. Also just tracking those cooldowns. APA couldn't actually get that 4th hit on the explosive charge. This is back down to that bot lane. This initial start here was so good for FlyQuest. The tether into the ulti lands onto Yeon, but TL find an opportunity here to try to get aggressive. The dash in, the ignite lands onto Busio. The shield there from Busio barely keeping him alive though, and as Yeon flashed forward to try to finish him off, Massu's able to turn it around there. And Karma on this patch, did get the buffs we were talking about. The shield buff was one of those things that did change. The Inspire is 20 more plus a higher AP ratio at max rank, and then here mid lane, so critical that the 4th shot here from that explosive charge couldn't actually get off because he couldn't reset the W. So this is why Inspired can actually flash forward and look for that pillar, because he knows no flash from earlier, no rocket jump because he couldn't get the reset on his E, no way out.
Yup, nicely played there. And unfortunately for Team Liquid, that means both deaths that they incurred at the hands of FlyQuest were plays that they engaged.
Yep.
Yeon didn't have to go all the way in bottom lane. They didn't have to make the dive mid. They thought that both were a good opportunity, and both times they thought wrong. Bwipo with a nice flash out there to avoid being shoved back under the turret and getting Cassante. APA now just going to have to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more careful. FlyQuest commanding a 1,500 gold lead this point in the game feels pretty nice for them. You can see the timer in the top left says we've got a couple of minutes until all those Void Grubs are back alive. Team Liquid does not want to allow FlyQuest to secure themselves the ability to spawn the Grublings on top of all the objective advantages they've already been commanding in the early game, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, they're even getting the play top. That matchup really starts to get very one-sided for Mordekaiser at this point in the game. Also, just tracking the skill order for Busio, at this point, because Karma did get these buffs on this patch. A lot of it is centered around higher AP ratios, though the base values for the shield also has gone up on this patch. So on 14.2, Karma has been just getting banned out in the other games. This time it gets through, and it's looking really good.
Yeah, and the big thing you can see across top and mid as well is that they just have the waves shoved up. So it basically just gives Inspired complete freedom to go wherever he wants. It looks like he's going down towards bot side, maybe set up for Drake. And then, as you said, Grubs are less than a minute into the game. As we see the Karma buffs coming through. I actually thought she was in a great spot already, but now she has more base health, does more AP damage, and her shield is stronger. But
Inspired very low, bursted down. Team Liquid has the DPS for this one, but now UmTi's here on the front, and Jensen's ready to join the fight. APA makes his way down as the Shockwave finds UmTi, but it's only one target, and APA is ready to jump in over the wall to keep it going. Jensen under pressure, and APA finds his shot this time. FlyQuest, having lost their mid laner here after the jungler just has barely respawned, means that Team Liquid has 4-man control over the bot side river, and they're going to take their first Drake of the game.
Great play from TL, but also a really poor Shockwave there from Jensen. Alexi's the Shockwave solo on UmTi, and there wasn't going to be anywhere close to enough damage to actually finish him off, and that means that APA then has no threat on him. He can jump forward, he can flash in, and get that kill over onto Jensen. So a great punish there from TL off of what seemed like a mistake from Jensen.
Let's see it again.
Inspired's just gonna go in. I wonder, I mean, if TL do want to get back into this game, they do kind of have to try to set up plays like this, right? And yeah, the Shockwave only hits UmTi, and then APA is able to just completely burst down Jensen.
Yeah, nicely done by APA. Had 3 hits already on the E, flashes forward for one more auto plus the ulti. So then it does explode after that ult on the other side. So has the damage just enough there to be able to burst them down. And looking like he's just going to sit on the Vamp and probably build towards a Kraken, which is a build that I'm a pretty big fan of. Just have a little bit of sustain there with the fleet to be able to kind of work through any poke that does come in. Nice bit of a stealing there back from Jensen, though, does end up getting the big Raptor. Jensen obviously going to be scaling, going to be still in a pretty good spot. The game does even out a little bit after that last play, but we'll see where TL can go from here, because I just think there's way more pressure on them to make things happen. If FlyQuest just kind of AFK for 20 minutes and then you team fight later, I feel like they win almost for free.
Yeah, that's the big thing about, is like they were obviously able to stop this Drake stacking, but now it's like, are they going to be able to keep continuing to group up, try to get some of these picks? because they're in a really, like in my opinion, they're still in a really difficult spot just because their team composition is a little bit more difficult to execute than FlyQuest.
I mean, this is the tough thing about Lucian, right? Lucian, can be really successful, but you have to pilot it so expertly. You have to get leads, and you have to be so careful about when you go forward. But at the same time, if you just sit back and do nothing, you're absolutely useless, right? So you have to be finding those opportunities to dash forward, get those big chunks. But in the 5v5, if you dash forward and you get pillared into a shockwave, if you get poked out by the Karma and the Ezreal, all of a sudden, you're out of there.
It's what Doublelift was talking to us about back in week 1. When you're playing Lucian in the mid game, no matter how fed you are, the margin for error is usually close to or equal to 0, right? One mistake, you're done, the lead's gone, and it's difficult. FlyQuest also securing all 6 grubs, and especially having champions that are capable split pushers like a Mordekaiser, like a Trundle. This becomes a nightmare if Team Liquid cannot continue to find 5v5s, to find plays, and find ways to keep FlyQuest from just allowing this game to passively sail in their favor.
Yeah, and we'll see what we can do. They are still trying to get vision out, right? You could see them trying to set up bot side vision previously. Obviously, FlyQuest also has vision there, but just trying to find these windows because it is looking like FlyQuest are going to be setting up for this next Drake and should have first prio on it.
All right, Team Liquid, do you want to even try to answer this? Does this just become a give it away and hope that we can find something in trade? Remember, the Herald on the map means that you could just try to go cross-map with them, and it looks like UmTi is saying, yes, let's focus on the Herald up here. We want to try to value some gold over some other early Drakes. FlyQuest nowhere nearby to really stop this, so UmTi seemingly going to get it for free.
They will be taking a tower down in the bot lane, though, so they're going to be pushing that very heavily, and that is the answer. Trundle, one of the best turret takers, actually. Really can crush through that. And you can see APA, he's spamming assist pings down towards bot lane. He knows he might not even be able to hold the tier 2 here. This is going down very, very fast. They have those Void Might spawns coming out, so did get a lot of those grubs. They got all 6 of them, in fact. And it's going to mean they shred through these towers in a hurry.
Especially with Titanic Hydra, right? Trundle just having the extra pushing ability to clear out the wave instantly, turn his aggro right back onto the turret. UmTi does finally secure that Herald. It was slow, it was steady, but he made it across the finish line. But they got to get value out of it now after the damage done to bottom lane.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing, and especially with these grubs, we've already talked about the split pushers on FlyQuest side as well, who you can actually send to a side lane to chew down these turrets. Because an ideal mid game for FlyQuest, they can still set up wherever and just get pushes in lanes, use the grubs they have. So I am curious to see where UmTi and TL are going to be popping this Rift Herald down to try to get some advantages, especially maybe try to pop Lucian in a spot where he can maybe push out a wave and do damage, rotate to Herald or rotate to Drake after sending Herald mid, stuff like that.
It'll also just be really interesting to see, what the builds are going to be from here on out, as Yeon in some trouble, potentially going to have to pop the calling.
Yeah, calling, but he gets away from it. There wasn't enough lockdown, and there's sort of what we were talking about with one of the weaknesses of FlyQuest. You don't have hard engage. Yes, you can throw up a pillar or whatever as APA. Gonna get dove by Bwipo. He wants to bring down the hammer, and down it goes. APA taken out in a 1v1 in the top side. Meanwhile, the defense continues for TL back in the mid lane. UmTi's got to be careful and crashes down in reverse just to escape the damage of FlyQuest, who now have a man advantage on the map, who have now taken another turret up there in the top lane, and who now can rotate that advantage down into the bottom side to start up the next trade.
And this is just so well played by Bwipo. Again, he forced out the rocket jump from APA on the earlier trade, and then his really good cooldown timing, knows that it's not going to be up immediately at the start of that, goes in on top of him, gets that solo kill.
This tweet is more relevant than ever after that one. Well, I mean, hey, if you're going to talk your trash and then back it up, I respect that.
That's when you got to do it.
Let's go, Bwipo. And let's go Inspired, just picking up this Drake nice and free. Doesn't really need any help with Trundle doing that. As you can see, Jensen was just making sure there was nothing coming towards him from the enemy jungle. Honestly, FlyQuest just feels like they keep improving their position in this game.
Yeah, and that does take some of the power away from this Rift Herald, right? Because an ideal setup would have been, oh, we pop it mid, we get the push in mid, we try to get some chunk on turret, we can rotate down to Drake, try to break FlyQuest's kind of stranglehold down here, but then they were not able to do that. APA dies in top lane, and, everything is kind of collapsing for TL right now.
I'd also say, you know, as much as Bwipo and Jensen really are a big threat, and the stacking of MR, you know, makes sense through that lens. We have Kanik Rookern into the Spectre's Cowl. We have Swifty Boots on Impact. He's going to be paper to Massu if Masu's actually hitting him. There's no armor being built up really at all. It's even a Hollow Radiance there on UmTi, so they're really stacking the MR, but we'll see APA coming in from the side if they're going to try to look for a play. And it is going to be build all the masks for Bwipo, as he already has his Leandra. He's going to be going in towards Riftmaker, and then I wouldn't be shocked to just see him starting to stack some armor as well, because really the only threats on the other side are APA and Yeon, and that's all physical. So you can do those kind of things that I was talking about, where you can build, you know, some early AP, and then just stack armor and ult the biggest threat in the team fight, and your team just crushes it in the 4v4.
Yeah, what are they going to do about you at that point? Honestly, Team Liquid does have a lot of problem solving to do, and the clock keeps marching against them. Impact back up here on the top side. Yeah, Kanik Rookern is good against the Mordekaiser, but as he gets into those fights against somebody like the Trundle, like the Ezreal, especially if Trundle just uses the subjugate on him, things can become pretty dicey pretty quick.
And at the end of the day, you know, with the Kanik Rookern, with this much MR, with his 50 boots, Impact should never really die in the 1v1 to Bwipo. But at the same time, you can never take an extended trade either and win that out. So you just have to think about, like, who's going to get more value in those 5v5s and in these team fights. And at this position, I really heavily favor Bwipo. So he's going to be feeling pretty good about his spot. And with Jensen just farming up on the bot side, Busio's coming down, APA's in trouble.
APA now going to get jumped on by Busio too as Jensen goes forward. APA with a nice escape. Jensen still chasing after him. Command attack hits. Needs another one to take him down. The clockwork wind up, winds him out of there. Jensen grabbing another kill as the Rift Herald is driven straight into the mid lane tier 1 turret. They've got the Herald. They've got all the little grub babies. They're going to take that one down. Unfortunately for Team Liquid, that is the first turret they have taken all game. So still behind the pace being set by FlyQuest right now, but at least it was the mid lane tier 1. That'll at least help them open up the map a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, again, like, if TL are going to want to come back into this game, they need to have good vision setups, and they need to try to isolate members of FlyQuest so you're not facing them in a straight matchup, right? Because otherwise, I think the poke coming out of Massu in particular, they can just play with fog and end up beating TL that way.
And that's also why I like FlyQuest's lane assignments, because they've been making it almost impossible for TL to do that. If we think back a couple minutes, it was Jensen pushing bot lane with Inspired. This time, it's Jensen pushing bot lane with Busio covering him. You can't actually go and look to 2v1 Bwipo, because he's just going to ult one of you and beat you down.
The Mordekaiser conundrum.
Exactly, right? So it becomes very, very difficult. The only real point of vulnerability is Jensen. You're not going to be able to pick on the Ezreal, who's just going to be able to shift away in mid lane. You have to attack Jensen, but he's always had people covering him when he's pushing whatsoever. So I think FlyQuest is playing this out very intelligently. And quickly, it's worth touching on the fact that it's a Horizon focus for Busio. So going a very aggressive build here. He has the Zazix already complete, and he's going heavily towards the AP. He went 5 points Q, so he's really looking for high poke.
The build right now being used by Karma players prevalently in solo queue for the solo lanes. Hold on, we'll get right back to it. Inspired and the rest of FlyQuest going in after Team Liquid as Yeon and CoreJJ are able to disengage. But the solo lane Karma build these days is the Malignance. Malignance into the Horizon focus. So just going support item into Horizon instead. He's playing support Karma as a solo lane AP Karma. And it's going to be hitting some big damage numbers if he can dial in those inner flames.
Yeah, and generally speaking, even on this patch, when I've been seeing people play to support, they're still going more traditional support items because they don't feel they have the economy to actually support all this AP. But from this point, he just feels really confident in the poke. And because they're playing with a Trundle, you pillar them up, you poke them down, you harass them around objectives, they're playing from a point of power. It's a really interesting take. You know, the E did also get buffed on this patch, and you could also make the argument that, hey, the only way the TL can win is actually 100-0ing someone, so maybe you should be E-maxing and playing that more supportive style. But we'll just have to kind of track it and see if it pans out.
So also worth noting, both the Seraph's Embrace and Muramana are completed for Jensen and Massu respectively, so nice big power spikes there. You were talking about how Jensen's the only guy you can go after. Well, it's harder when he's got a built-in Mage Sterax, and then the extra damage from that Massu poke that you were talking about before, Emily, is just going to make it so much more oppressive for TL to try to check into Fog, to try to contest these neutral objectives. Bwipo versus Impact up here on the top side. The noodle fight is in full swing as the push continues back in here. Uh-oh, hold on now. Not a noodle fight any longer. Impact sees his moment. He wants to go in, but he goes right back out. The Cassante ulti and the Ghost both used there, but Bwipo unfazed by it. UmTi making his way up here, so Bwipo's going to continue retreating for now. Impact continuing the chase. dodges away from the claw. Meanwhile, the Drake is going to be taken by FlyQuest on the other side of the map. If Bwipo lives, it's just a free objective. If he dies, they're going to end up trading him away for it. Yeon and CoreJJ pushing up mid as Bwipo's now in the middle of a 1v3, still trying to fight his way out of it. Back in mid, not a whole lot happening here with a 2v2. Bwipo trying to take UmTi out before it all ends. UmTi with a flash away, staying alive. Oh no, APA! Was that the betrayal of all time? Almost, but not quite. Shut down back over to APA. But man, oh man.
Oh god. All right, we're pulling that up now because even though obviously FlyQuest are going to end up getting this bot lane turret and they might be able to reestablish push in mid to try to take out that mid turret as well as Jensen TP's bot to cover that wave. UmTi, for those that don't know, obviously he's had a little bit, not necessarily a rough game, but you know, I think Inspired had a really good control over FlyQuest's early game. His attention to detail was very good. UmTi is known as the general. It's a joke that Cloud Templar started, I believe, on the Korean cast for the way he tries to command, especially on Fredit Brion, a lot of his teammates. As we see him go in and try to help out Impact here. It just takes them so long to kill Bwipo here, even with APA joining in the fight.
Well, and a lot of it is that they have to go in and out, because if UmTi is hard committed to him, he would get insta-ulted and Bwipo would just kill him, right? So you kind of have to try to slow him down so APA can catch up. That Q flash missing for Bwipo was the difference between him dying and him surviving. But we've got a question for everyone in chat. Who should we interview if FlyQuest does win? Should it be Inspired, Massu, or Busio? You can vote in chat now on the poll. But, you know, Bwipo knows that Q flash missing out, that was the difference. Would have loved to get a kill in that situation, but either way, they take the Dragon on the bot side, and it took 3 members top, and he almost took one with him.
You think it's hard to kill him already? It's an Ocean Rift. If he gets an Ocean Soul on Mordekaiser.
And he's going to start stacking armor.
Yeah, Ocean Soul on Trundle too. Like, these champions are going to become absolutely obnoxious for this squad from TL to try to challenge their health bars at all. Let's see, Baron's on the Rift, 25.5 minutes into the game. The gold lead for FlyQuest honestly hasn't really grown past that 2,500 mark, shrunk back down to about 2K right now. But as they approach the Soul, as we start to get to this point that you're talking about where the big bruisers can start becoming brick walls, the lead is going to be deceptive because they're going to be a lot stronger than just the 2K would suggest.
And you look over at Yeon, his build is just not that much damage, right? It's not a lot of consistent damage. It's about the initial poke here. He's playing this Stormrazor rapid fire build, which is really popular with the Nami. You know, you dash in, you try to chunk someone down, but he also has to go QSS to actually deal with the Mord, and it's not high sustained DPS, so it's really tough. If that initial poke gets shielded up, what else do you really have? You know, there's just so much more DPS on the other side at this point in the game when you look at what Massu has, when you look at what Jensen and Bwipo have.
And even right there, you saw UmTi coming up around the corner, seeing if maybe there was an angle for anything. The only person in front is Massu. Massu can press E. As long as your reaction time isn't Grandma tier, you're getting away from the Rell engage.
Yeah, and this is where the poke from FlyQuest's comp is just going to start to get super oppressive. And when we're looking at 5v5 from these two teams, another thing to watch out for is whether Bwipo or Impact can isolate someone on the opposing team, right? Because even if TL end up getting a good engage, if Bwipo has really good teamfight targeting in teamfights, which he usually does, he should be able to isolate someone from TL and kind of break up the fight so FlyQuest can reset and just soften them with poke.
Yeah, I mean, FlyQuest also just have so many threats, right? Like, it's very difficult because you have to kill Jensen, you have to kill Massu, or you're probably not going to win the fight. But if you try to walk past the Titanic Trundle, if you try to walk past Bwipo, who has 2 core damage items and stacking armor, it's going to be very tough. But TL, it's desperation time now. They're going to be starting up the Baron here. It is going to be spotted out by FlyQuest. We'll see what the response is.
All right, True Shot Barrage finds it out, and that means APA and UmTi bail away. You can see the positioning of everybody else. Impact was waiting in the side brush in the enemy jungle. You also still had Yeon and CoreJJ off to the side in the river. They didn't want to commit all 5 bodies into the pit. They wanted to be able to turn, but it meant as soon as it got discovered, you can't do it fast enough with just the 2 guys, just the 1 DPS in the tank. 1,500 gold, still the lead for FlyQuest in this game as we wait for the next Drake to spawn. It is Ocean Soul if FlyQuest get it. You know Team Liquid is feeling the pressure. You talk about trying to walk past the Trundle. With the Frozen Heart now completed, it's even tougher than ever. This item has become much more popular after the item rework. The price point went down. It just feels like it's got a lot of value, and I love seeing junglers pick it up on their economy.
Something also really interesting that we haven't touched on yet is it's actually a Solstice Slay support item here for CoreJJ. So this is traditionally considered that kind of engage item, but what you can do when you're playing with the Lucian is, so when you slow or immobilize someone, it gives you health and it gives 90 move speed to you and your closest ally. So you E the Lucian, Lucian dashes in, he's gonna be able to get that slow with that, get that proc, and have the move speed to then retreat back after the poke. So I think that very much is the idea.
Okay.
It is kind of an interesting take, and we'll have to see, you know, really how it's working out for them throughout the game, because generally people are going like Celestial Bastion, the defensive one, or they're going something a little bit more aggressive and the kind of heal support one. This is not something I've seen a ton of.
Yeah, this is a really interesting response from TL in terms of setting up this Drake, because not only are they trying to contest this and stop it from FlyQuest, but Tristana.
Hold on, they are immediately already going in. The wave got shot off. Bwipo's in the middle of thorning from people. Impact's going all out, and Bwipo's under pressure. UmTi zoned out by Busio off to the side as Impact, Core, and Yeon all have to retreat. The Soul may have been claimed by FlyQuest, but APA is marching down the top lane. He had taken the tier 2 before the Drake even started, and now with all 5 enemy players occupied, APA has the pressure to take down the inhibitor itself, allowing the rest of the team, and you said it, Isaac, they're straight onto the Baron. Team Liquid is recognizing this as their chance to pull FlyQuest back and forth across the rift, but they gotta be careful. FlyQuest still looking for an angle. They do not want to allow TL to have the super objective. Team Liquid seeing if maybe there's a chance to engage for them. UmTi's still looking. TP gonna come in to reinforce the FlyQuest lines. Impact is isolated. He's off to the side. FlyQuest still standing strong as 5. UmTi at half HP. And it looks like we're not going to get much more for now.
Yeah, what a great play from TL, kind of forcing FlyQuest to respond, right? Because they contested enough around that Drake Soul, even though FlyQuest obviously did get Ocean Jake. That will be a problem for TL. Sending Tristana, who just has insane push when she's left alone with a turret, they're able to get an inhib, and their rotation to Baron was also really good. It forced FlyQuest to inspire to that, to respond to that as well.
Yeah, I think TL's read is basically, we can't 5v5, right? Yep. So if you can't 5v5, try to play guerrilla tactics, try to get in the side lanes, try to take towers, you know, split up the map, make something crazy happen. And the problem is, you know, yeah, they did get an inhib, but Ocean Soul is now given over to FlyQuest. So if you couldn't 5v5 before, there's no way you're ever going to be able to 5v5 now. So as long as FlyQuest keeps pushing out these lanes, denying any sort of base race shenanigans, it's going to be very, very difficult for TL. And Ocean Soul also makes Baron hilariously easy to start up because you're going to stay at full health the entire time. So they can constantly threaten that. They can constantly look for these picks and these plays. But FlyQuest obviously is really low on hard engage, so it's going to be up to TL to try to problem solve. They just can't get caught and pinned down into a full-on fight.
All right, Commander Emily, if you're the one calling the shots for TL right now, what's the play? Where are you sending the troops? How do you navigate this?
I mean, actually, since APA still has TP up, I do like keeping him in a side lane as he goes back, I believe. Oh no, okay, he stayed. Because I think that's a good call, right? Like Tristana left alone in side lanes, as Isaac said, you do not want to 5v5 this FlyQuest team. So if you try to split them up, if you try to play to your side lanes, try to get APA isolated with a turret, that's a great call. And as we'll see, Bwipo.
Yeah, Bwipo's going in for a 1v2 here. Inspired's got to be careful. The Nami wave gets fired off. Bwipo's in the middle of everybody. He's going to start things off with an ulti. Looking to lock down Impact. Massu and Inspired putting some damage onto Yeon. Yeon tries to get away, but he's beat down by the Trundle. Bwipo's still in a 1v2 situation, but he's surviving just fine for now. Flashes back over the wall. He's A-okay, but it's APA down in bot lane. He's going to keep pushing, looking for another inhibitor. As FlyQuest are down onto the Baron, Orianna's going to go back. It's Jensen who's on APA duty as the remaining 4 FlyQuest players in a 4v3. UmTi could be the steal. This is what they're hoping for. Team Liquid's going to need a hero moment out of their jungler. A TP coming in as Bwipo and Busio want to keep the TL jungle away. Impacts into the backside of the pit, just being an absolute 6,000 HP ward to allow UmTi to make sure he knows when it's time to go in. Now the blast cone's going to get set off. Bwipo and Busio both still trying to keep UmTi away. Impact's still in the pit, not allowing the Baron to reset.
Trying to finish it.
UmTi jumps back over the wall. The crash down comes in. A TP's coming out. Impact here in a 1v2 now, leading the way. UmTi goes back over the wall. Flash ready to re-engage. Inspired back onto the ramp of his own side of the jungle. Bwipo's tanking on the front line as UmTi barely gets out. Bwipo's hanging on by a thread as Inspired chases away the enemy jungler. Impact is low, but CoreJJ's lower. Inspired gets the kill on UmTi, and Impact is about to fall. The health bars were dicey, but it's FlyQuest coming out on top. It's a 7-3 game, and Baron is in their sights. Jensen's back in the base dealing with the minions. And Yeon and CoreJJ still trying to see if there's anything they might be able to do, but I don't think it's so. Baron down to 2,000 HP and claimed by FlyQuest.
Your lungs are amazing. That was the slowest team fight I've seen in my life.
I have 2 words for that team fight. Ocean Soul. That Mordekaiser healed for about 7,000 throughout the fight. That was ridiculous, as that just went on and on and on and on, and we saw the power of these shields, of that Ocean Soul regen, even with Jensen in the base for so long, because Jensen TP'd the initial play, then base the cover APA TP's in, and it was just madness. But I will say, TL really looked like they had very split comms on what they wanted to do. Impact TPing into the pit, to me, meant they wanted to try to finish the Baron, burst down the Baron. It was at 3k, but then they ditched the pit, they get out of the pit, they're taking damage from that the whole time, and now we have FlyQuest on the Elder.
The Elder at 6,000 HP and dropping swiftly. UmTi looking for his moment. Bwipo's here in the front. He just wants to keep the enemy jungler away while the rest of the team secures the objective. Team Liquid, having seen this, has to know this fight doesn't go their way. UmTi's gonna burn, and the Dragon's gonna blast them. FlyQuest keep their march going, and APA and CoreJJ both gotta get the hell out of town. APA still rocket jumping his way away to safety, but it's a double super buff FlyQuest marching down the mid lane in a 5v4.
Yeah, and I mean, this is where you really see, as we see all of those
So many grubs.
Chat was calling them the grubbies. I think they're actually called void mice.
I call them grubbies.
But yeah, this is the true power of FlyQuest comp, right? Especially with Ocean Soul, it just takes so long at this point to get through the healing, to get through HP, and goodbye. There's the power of karma right there.
There's the power of karma. There goes Yeon. There goes APA. Both marksmen out of the picture. And Impact cannot do anything alone. CoreJJ going back into the fountain one way or the other. A double kill for Massu. FlyQuest make quick work of him after getting those buffs. It's going to be a 3-0 FlyQuest start.
And you can see Bwipo was feeling it in the end there. The reactions on the player cams were big. FlyQuest come up with a huge win here, 3-0 start, taking down TL, one of those teams that was projected to be up at the top of the table, but the Lucian woes do continue in NA, still winless for this pick. Only 1 win on Lucian between LCS and LEC. They just couldn't get the kind of a lead that they would have needed to really have a chance in the 5v5. FlyQuest played it out really intelligently. Inspired was everywhere he needed to be, covering his lanes. They never really left Jensen exposed, and he was the only target it felt like they could try to attack in that side lane. FlyQuest just played it out really, really smart and dominated the objective game.
Yeah, and we talked about how, again, FlyQuest had some shaky moments even in their games last week. This is the most cohesive I've seen them in terms of entering the game with this composition, knowing exactly how they wanted to play it out and how it worked against TL, right? Because again, I keep going to that bot lane and talking about NA's Lucian woes. So much of it is just from not being able to get that absolute dominant performance in the bot lane that you need for this Lucian to just take over in the mid game.
And you can see right there on the graphic we flew, the first part of playing Lucian bot in NA is ow. That is how the champion functions. He is not having a good time at this point in time. But FlyQuest sure is, man. Remember, this org started out so hot last spring. They were dominating. They were smacking everybody in the mouth. And then summer came along, and all of a sudden the wings fell off, the wheels fell off, the thing went down into the ocean. What on earth happened? They bounced back here in 2024. They're off to a great start. And now it's time for us to join Raz and one of the people responsible for that start, Inspired, on stage for an interview.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everyone? I've got Inspired here with a win. Congratulations.
Thank you.
First of all, the thing I want to hit you with, of course, chat's the reason why you got here. They wanted to hear from you, but it was just your birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Tell me about that birthday week. First of all, I saw that cake. Someone, it was inspired, not inspired. Tell me a little bit about it.
I don't know, someone made a mistake. That was a little bit awkward, but I was happy anyway. And about the birthday, I mean, I'm really happy we won the game because it's like the first game after my birthday, so it's like kind of a birthday present.
True. And a question that I have for you is just more about the team environment, because you talked about a little bit about Massu in the last interview, hearing from him as a player. But for me, what I'm interested in is just being able to talk to like Bwipo, because I can imagine not even just Bwipo, but Jensen, just a lot of like I would say vocal players within the team. So how do you feel like the environment just generally is, especially in reviews?
I mean, especially in reviews, it's mostly me and Bwipo giving the opinions and how we should be playing the game, because I think our two voices are the most important during the games, and like clutch moments is us making the decisions that everyone has to follow. So we kind of want people to get on the same page as us. I think me and him are really similar to each other. Our view on the game is very, very similar. So we just need to make sure that we are all connected during the game, and our bot lane and mid lane know like what's up and what do we want to play, what do we want to do, what do we want to play, and then I think it's going to be really hard to beat us.
And talking about the fact that it's going to be hard to beat you, you guys are already 3-0. I want to hear from your kind of thoughts on your expectations coming to this split, because people were very loud about Cloud9 coming into this split. People were very interested about NRG, of course, coming in as champions. But a little bit of chatter. Yes, the fact that you're back, we talked about that. What is your expectation going into this split, and also your personal goals?
I mean, expectations were obviously that we are going to be a good team. I think every team that I played on was always pretty good and at least a little bit successful. And I think looking at the rosters, I was really confident that we'll make at least top 2. I think Cloud9 is a very strong team, but I can see them not perform on the day, and we could like beat them. Other teams, I'm not really scared at all. I think Energy winning was a big fluke because I was not in the league. And other teams are kind of whatever too.
Okay, and just on your personal goals, because anytime we hear comms from you or just anybody that's talking about you, it's all about how vocal you are within the game. But anything that you're coming into this split just wanting to work on personally, because it has been quite some time. Of course, new players that you're working with. So anything that you feel like you need to work on going into this split?
I think what I need to work on is explaining myself better. I think as we were talking about before, I think if I get my whole team playing on the same page as I wanted to play, I think like that's what I need to work on. Because currently, even when I'm saying what we should do, sometimes I don't go into the details, and then someone makes a mistake, and then the whole plan is ruined. So I think I need to work on making sure everyone is on the same page and making sure that I give clear directions to the teammates. Thanks
a ton, of course. Once again, congratulations on the win, Inspired. We're going to be going to a break right after this. It's going to be Immortals versus Shopify Aurelion next.
Inspired back onto the ramp of his own side of the jungle. Bwipo's tanking on the front line as UmTi barely gets out. Bwipo's taken on by a thread as Inspired chases away the enemy jungler. Impact is low, but CoreJJ's lower. Inspired gets the kill on UmTi, and Impact is about to fall. The health bars were dicey, but it's FlyQuest coming out on top. It's a 7-3 game, and Baron is in their sights. Jensen's back in the base dealing with the minions, and Yeon and CoreJJ still trying to see if there's anything they might be able to do, but I don't think it's so. Baron down to 2,000 HP and claimed by FlyQuest.
Your lungs are amazing. That was the slowest team fight I've seen in my life.
Red Bull gives you wings.